Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three amazing guests today to answer this question. How can we transform team conflict into collaborative solutions? So I'm so excited to hear the responses that these three amazing guests have. But first, let's do a quick introduction to the three of them. First and foremost, Dr. Margie Williamson, certified professional coach and chief operating officer at PGC Basketball. Had a long career as a women's basketball coach at the collegiate level, including Baylor University and Mary Hardin Baylor. She is committed to helping players and coaches know how to have fulfilling careers, even through life's ups and downs. And gratuitous plug here, my children have attended PGC camps, and they are absolutely amazing. Next, Eric Kreitz, leadership strategist and owner of Renovium Leadership. Eric is a retired U.S. Army psychological operations colonel with 2 decades of special ops leadership experience. He's now an ICF-certified leadership coach and strategist, helping organizations welcome people back to work after life-changing absences. His approach combines military expertise with insight from overcoming his own mental health and addiction struggles. Eric's doing some great work out there as well. And then last but not least, Anna Nelson, founder of Anna Nelson Coaching and Training. She is a Gallup certified strengths coach, an ICF ACC certified coach, and an MBA who helps teens connect who they are with where they're going before they waste time, energy, or tuition figuring it out the hard way. Anna, welcome to the show as well. All right, you guys, we're going to jump right into this thing and answer this question. Margie, you drew the short stick, so we're going to let you go first. And that question again is, how can we transform team conflict into collaborative solutions?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate you having me here. First of all, the question makes me think of James 4:1. And I'll paraphrase. Why do we war with each other? It's because we have not, and we want to satisfy our own desires. That's paraphrase. And so it's normal that, and all of us, myself included, can be self-focused for a lot of different reasons. And so if I have a conflict with a team or within a team, the first thing I try to do is usher in agreement and bring focus off of self back to the overall mission. Well, what's our mission? What's our vision? What are our goals of the department or the company? So bring the team together and say, hey, why are we doing what we're doing? And so lay the foundation of agreement and alignment. And so then, I'm not looking at me, I'm looking at, okay, the team. And so just want to create the common ground first. And then I want to create space for each team member to share why it's important, like what's important in this situation or context. What's important to you, Kyle? Eric, what is important to you? And I want to allow each team member to share, hey, this matters to me because. And while one's speaking, we also want to deeply listen. And we allow that space so we're not interrupting, we're not, in the conflict, we've established common mission, we've established common ground, and now I'm going to share what's important. And so I want to create space for everyone to feel heard and to identify what really matters. So depending on the context of the conflict, one of the exercises I like to do and what we do at PGC internally with our company is, let's say it's we're battling over an idea, or I want to do it this way, or I think we should, have this direction. Is I want to make sure we allow space for this is what's important and this is what I think. So one exercise is flip positions. And so Kyle, you have an idea, you have a way of doing things. I'm going to share with you 2 or 3 things that I like about your idea. And so I go around the room. What are 2 or 3 things you like about Kyle's idea, Ann's idea, Eric's idea? Okay, what's one thing you would change? Now notice, I don't say what's one thing you don't like.
Yeah.
So I just want to provide, well, I would change this about Kyle's idea. So first, I'm flipping to a positive perspective. These are the things I like, and this is one thing I would change. And that brings in just feedback. It brings in enhancement And it doesn't negate the positive I've already shared. Because if I say I like these three things and I don't like that, Kyle, you might just hear what I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
And,
it. I love that from so many perspectives, the collaboration, and even going back to what you said about taking yourself out of it, right? Fantastic. Eric, what would you add as it relates to how to transform team conflict into collaborative solutions?
Yeah, I think Margie had a great way to approach it, and really what I wanted to take a look at is the mindset around conflict. And you know, a lot of the time, conflict has that negative connotation to it, and people try to avoid it or set the conditions to try and avoid that conflict, as opposed to maybe sometimes even leaning into it a little bit. Conflict doesn't always have to be bad. It indicates that there's passion there, that there are strong ideas, that people believe in what they're doing, and you know, really going back to Margie's point is how do you then leverage that and turn it into something that's positive? And so, taking a look at some of those methodologies, what I like to do is have people, you know, instead of sitting on either side of the table looking at each other at the problem, how do we get on the same side of the table? How do we take a look at that problem from an organizational view of, you know, what is beneficial to the organization about this problem or about this conflict, and how can we take some of those creative solutions and innovative solutions to solve the problem into account, and then over the long term be able to take some of those solutions and integrate them into our process and workflow. And so really having some of those processes in place to how to deal with conflict before the conflict happens is also really useful. We take a look at those things with organizations because conflict is going to be inevitable. There's a reason that there are account managers and creatives together in advertising agencies, right? They each have their strengths and they each have their passions, but there's that natural conflict within those two roles. You know, the creative wants something to be perfect and it wants to be inspiring. The account manager just wants it to be on time and it wants it to be under budget. So they each have their own individual stake in that conflict. And so being able to balance out those two needs, both are very relevant needs, both are very needed. And so a good leader will go in and start to figure out how do we balance what both of those needs are so that we can have a great product for our client. And so being able to lean into that conflict, making sure we have processes in place for dealing with that conflict, and then being able to turn the outcome of that resolution into something that we can weave into the culture of the organization is going to be beneficial.
Yeah, good stuff. And the whole sitting on the same side of the table, right? That visual, I think, you know, maybe even creates an environment to perceive conflict as not a threat, but data, right? And now what are we going to do to filter through this and make it work? Love it. All right, Anna, the home stretch, your turn. What would you add to Margie and Eric's comments on how to transform team conflict into collaborative solutions?
Well, as someone who actually worked as a project manager at a boutique marketing firm, I totally know about conflict. But I would say, number one, it's like know thyself first. You have to know yourself on a deep level. And I think it's also really important to understand what your blind spots are because our greatest strengths can also become our greatest weaknesses. And if you start understanding, if you know where your strength starts turning into a weakness, then you can make sure it stays neutral or be a strength. But when I was a project manager, it was very clear to my graphic designer, like we were the opposites, but we worked really well with each other. And yes, there would be conflict. I would have to say, I am so sorry. I did not mean that way. But this, like, we'd have to figure it out. But we knew without the other person, we could not do our jobs. And we understood what each person brought to the table. And she couldn't do any design unless I was there saying, this is what the client needs. This is what they said. This is their feedback. This is what the creative director wants, guiding that. And then I needed her to create the work because I couldn't create the work. And so it was a great relationship and there was that natural tension, but we each had to understand this is what we bring to the table. And now this is where we're crossing the line where we're not value add. Now I have to pass it off to someone else.
I love as simple as it is, I love the term natural tension, right? I think if we had an awareness of how that just exists just because we're human, how that can maybe even put our minds to ease. If we've got a he said, she said kind of a thing, how do we encourage people to step back and own where they may be contributing to that problem? Is that clear as mud? Can we work with that, or do I need to re-language it?
I understand it.
Okay. You want to jump in, Margie, and go first?
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, culture, what is the culture, the standards in a company that we all agree to abide by when it comes to conflict? In our company, at PGC Basketball, we number one of our main fundament, we have about 32 general fundamentals and about 12 manager fundamentals. And one of our general fundamentals is ultra ownership. When we have a process in place, it's called a breakthrough conversation. So that every breakdown can lead to a greater breakthrough. And when you're working with people, you're going to have gaps and breakdowns. And so our fundamental belief in culture and value is we're here to work and build trust with each other. And so we embrace breakthrough conversations. We have homework. So if I have a gap with you, Kyle, if you've hurt my feelings, Eric, and if I feel you've disrespected me, that's a gap and a breakdown. So before I can approach you, Anna, with a breakthrough conversation, I have to do my own work. What do I own? What could be another perspective? In addition, we have a commitment-based culture, which won't go into that, but I'm going to approach Anna based on her commitment of being. I know Anna's intentions and heart is to be a good teammate. So I'm going to come in with the knowing who she is committed to being. I'm not going to write her off. And so I do, so ultra ownership. And the premise is I'm approaching you, Anna, because you matter and I want to build trust. Trust has been eroded. I have felt offended, and now I want to approach you on it. But I'm coming with the intent to build trust, not to blame and point the finger. And so it starts with the culture. And how do you do things? How are we doing things around here? And that's how we do things at PGC. And we approach a breakthrough. We identify perceptions, just like the whole conflict, and we end it with, if I've hurt someone, I apologize and I ask for forgiveness. I apologize. Will you forgive me? So you get someone to say, I forgive you.
Yeah.
And we set new beginnings and new commitments.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing in all that is there's an expectation that this occurs, right? I mean, that's just embedded in the culture. That expectation is that we know it's going to happen. And so here's how we're going to agree to work through it. It's almost as if you're encouraging them to fight for the relationship and not in the relationship, right? Yeah. Exactly. I love that so much. Anna or Eric, what would you add?
I literally, when my marketing example, and this is a long time ago, but literally I was with my graphic designer because we had this whole, it was horrible. And I had to go in and I literally had to say the same things. I had to say her name. And I said, I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? And like, we trusted each other so much that, and it was like, of course I felt horrible. And it was like, unbelievable stress, all of the other things, but it's like, yeah, one, know yourself, but also like, how do you want to show up for people? And I think sometimes if there isn't a culture of that, how are you setting the example? Even if you're not a leader, let's say, maybe you're just a regular employee, how can you go and say, oh my goodness, Margie, I'm so sorry. I got really worked up in that meeting, but I totally believe in this project and I'm here for it. I just really was passionate about my ideas, right? It's kind of like, I am sorry. I know I was out of bounds. Please, I'm still on the team. So but it's hard and it's humbling. And you know what? I would way rather be like, I'm right, she's wrong. I'm going to maintain this. But then that doesn't make for a really fun work culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is hard, right? To take the ownership when we may be out of alignment and to stand in that, right? And then even to both of your points, what if that forgiveness isn't offered and you've still got to work with that person, right? Eric, what would you jump in and add to these ladies' comments?
Yeah, it's funny that common thread of apologizing and asking for forgiveness, also a common thread through recovery. And so, especially when you're making your amends and things like that. And, one of the things that I thought about too is typically in conflict, the outcome is never in doubt, or typically not in doubt. People are striving for an outcome that's going to help the company, or they're coming from a good place whenever that conflict starts to occur. It's rare that people try to maliciously undermine the organization. And so there's always that starting point. There's always that common ground that people are coming from. They're working this thing for a reason. They're passionate about it for a reason. And so, let's start with that common ground, and then let's figure out, if we have common ground to begin with, and we typically have the same outcome, is it just a methodology problem? Is it the way we're trying to do this, the issue? And let's break that down. Let's talk about why you're so passionate about doing it this way. What's the benefit that you see? What are some of the drawbacks that you see? And it always goes back to what Margie talked about initially, which was, let's figure out the different aspects of this and bring it together. But at the end of the day, kind of going to what Anna was talking about, humility is big. You've got to humble yourself to be able to say I'm sorry, and that's a big deal for some people. And so, coaching that and normalizing that within an organization is key, so that people can get through that process a little bit quicker and a little bit more effectively, so that they can get back to doing what they love.
Yeah. Humility and vulnerability, right? I mean, that is a huge element, I think, of this too. And it's not that we have to be able to agree on everything in order to collaborate, right? That's where conflict really can become more beneficial, is when we have differences of opinion, and then we have an expectation that occurs, so that we can come together and create even more beyond it. So you guys, I can't thank you enough. That's incredible insight. I know there's going to be so much gold that comes out of this. And thank you for taking some time to share a few minutes of your incredible experiences throughout your careers. That's all the time we've got for now. Thank you guys for joining us. Be sure to check us out every Thursday at noon Central on LinkedIn, and anytime right here on YouTube at MindFit Coaching. Thanks for joining us. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.